Are you getting stuck on certain aspects of songwriting? In this video, I'm going to tackle the top questions about writing songs, from sparking inspiration to crafting unforgettable lyrics. Whether you're just a beginner or already a seasoned songwriter, stick around because some of these tips could be a game changer for you. So let's get right into it. These are going to be kind of quick answers, so if you want me to do a full video on any of these topics, just let me know in the comments. Genghis Khan of the Mongol Empire asks, how do I start writing a song? I really want to invade all the different aspects of songwriting. So the first thing you want to really have nailed down is what genre are you writing for? Is it rock? Is it country? Is it hip hop? Is it soul? These are really going to inform the decisions you make. If you want to write a song that sounds like it's from the 70s and Steely Dan wrote it, you're going to be making very different decisions than you would if you're going to write like a pop punk song from the early 2000s. So it's really good to know, what kind of artists and what kind of styles am I trying to sound like? If you're already an established artist and you have your genre and your sound nailed, then you don't have to worry about this part. But maybe you want to expand. Maybe you want to go into some new territory in your new material. Things to think about before you make any of these other choices. So other than knowing what style and genre you're coming from, the most common place to start writing a song is with chords. It may just be a couple of cool sounding chords. It may be a full progression. You can listen to some of your favorite artists and listen to some of the chords they've used, some of the progressions they've used. Sometimes it's really simple. Sometimes it's just C, D, and G. You can make a lot of different songs with just those three chords. You can look up some of the most common chord progressions and just mess around with those. There's lots of places on the internet you can find those. I'm going to put a few of them up on the screen here. And the good thing about starting with a chord progression is it can really inform what you do next. It can guide you along. It can basically establish the song. It can give you a lot of building blocks to start from, especially in the most common genres like pop and country and, even rock a lot of the times. Having a nice chord structure to build from is really going to give you a firm foundation to what you do next. The next way you can start a song is with the melody. If you have a really good, strong melody, sometimes you can build the chords around that. So that's just doing things like singing a tune or playing a melody on your instrument. Starting with a melody can sometimes give you really interesting chord choices or really unorthodox chord progressions. So try starting with a melody and see how that goes. The next most common way to start a song is with the lyrics. This can be especially helpful if you're, a singer-songwriter, or perhaps you do story songs, like a Nick Cave kind of thing or a Johnny Cash kind of thing. Sometimes the words can inform the rest of the choices in the song. And the last most popular way to start a song is with the rhythm or the beat or the groove. This can be, like if you're doing hip hop, it might be a beat you've gotten from someone else, or it might be a beat you've created, then you're going to rap over top of. Or it might be, you might be working with a drummer and they have this really cool groove, and so you start to feel it and you start to, write some chords to that. Or if you're working in like Latin genres, maybe you get this cool rhythm going and you just start improvising over that. So it kind of depends on what you're going for, what your style is, but it can be a fun way to start a song if you've never tried that before. Vlad Sepesh, Voyevod el Valachia, asks, what comes first, the lyrics or the music? I really want to get ahead in songwriting. I would say 90% of the time it's the music that's written first. It's far more challenging to write music and melodies to lyrics that are already there. It can be kind of like cramming a square peg into a round hole when you start with the words. You can end up writing words that are really hard to sing or like way too many syllables. Lyrics are not poetry and they're not standard writing. They are their own thing, and they need to flow with the melody and with how you sing. What most songwriters will do is write the music and the vocal melodies, and we'll put like placeholder dummy sounds into the vocal melodies until we get the lyrics. For example, Yesterday by the Beatles, when Paul McCartney was writing that, he just sung the word scrambled eggs over and over again, just so he could get the vocal melodies down and as a placeholder for the lyrics that would come later. On the flip side of that, you have Elton John, who worked with the lyricist Bernie Taupin, And Bernie would hand him the lyrics, and then he would, get behind his piano and write the song to the lyrics. I've done this both ways a lot. For example, my song White Horse was done with the lyrics first. And what ends up happening is usually I have to kind of rewrite the lyrics a lot to fit into what ends up happening with the song. So overall, most songwriters will start with the music first and then add the melodies and then add the lyrics on top of that. If you're doing rap, hip hop, that kind of thing, obviously the words are everything in that genre, but even then, it's a lot better to have the beats to rap over first. And that's traditionally how that style, that genre was done. Dr. Josiah Bartlett, signer of the Declaration of Independence, asks, how do I write more memorable lyrics? I really want to find my signature sound. The number one thing I would do when writing lyrics is think about relatable emotions. Songs are about conveying emotion to people, whether it's, sadness, anger, happiness, love, lust, whatever it is. You want to be able to relate to people, so that should reflect in your words and in your music. Unless your genre is something that calls for it, you want to try to avoid silly rhymes, really simple rhymes, cliched phrases, things like that, things you've heard a million times before. There's also a lot of great books about writing lyrics, like this one. I highly recommend this one. Or any of the other many books that Pat has written are great places to get new ideas, new inspiration, and kind of train yourself on how to write better lyrics. One thing that's been very inspiring for me is going out by myself and eating at a sit-down restaurant, somewhere where you can hear other people's conversations. I know it may sound rude to sit and listen in on people, but you can really get some different ideas, things that are outside of your own life, and just listen to what they have to say. Maybe it's something really mundane that sounds really stupid to you. So-and-so got in a fight with so-and-so. Well, maybe that sparks an idea for a lyric, even if it's just one line. It's worth just kind of sitting and listening to what people are saying. Another thing that sounds kind of funny, but I've actually gotten a lot of ideas from this, are reality shows. Things like 90 Day Fiancé or Married at First Sight, where you've got these people with weird relationship issues, and you're like, that's really strange. Why are they fighting about that? Or why is that making them happy or sad? These are great fodder for coming up with new and unique lyrics. Also, just think about really tough situations that you've been through in your life or your family have gone through, or even historically, what did your ancestors go through? There's so much to mine from your own life and your own emotional reactions to things. Unless you're a robot with no feelings or emotions whatsoever, which if you are, you probably shouldn't be writing lyrics. But you should have all kinds of different emotions that have gone through your head as a child, as a teenager, in your first relationships, in your friendships, vacations you've gone on. There should just be a wealth of information in your head that you can draw from and pull from. Any strong reactions you've had to things in your life, or strong reactions that you see other people having, those are often really great starting points for lyrics. What I see a lot of kind of beginning songwriters and amateur songwriters doing is writing about somebody else somewhere else, like the fictional character that they have no real connection to, real relation to. They're kind of like making it this fictional story, like it's, some kind of Sherlock Holmes novel. And you really don't need to do that. Maybe you went through this relationship where you thought everything was perfect the whole time, and it turns out the other person was cheating on you, or they never loved you. These are like amazing things for lyrical inspiration. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you've met the perfect person and you can't believe how good life is now that you've met them. So many songs are about these, what seem like simple, mundane things to you, maybe. You don't need to invent these big stories, these tales from Jules Verne where it's, you're sailing around the ocean. They always say to write what you know, and that's completely true. Maybe your life is boring. Well, if it's really boring, write about how boring it is, But think of it in an interesting way, like a metaphors of how boring things are and how you just wish you could find a better life for yourself. There's so many people that want a better life. I mean, if your life is boring and nothing is happening, write about that. If you are alive and living in this world today, I guarantee you have some stories to tell. Otherwise, why are you a musician? Why are you a songwriter? You're here to tell us about what you've experienced, and that's what we want to hear. If you like what you see in this video so far, please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. It would really help me a lot. Thank you. Joan of Arc is asking directly from her siege of Orleans, what is the best way to write a chorus? I really want to get people behind my songs and what I'm trying to say. So with choruses, it's all about the hook. What is a hook? Well, that's something that hooks you in. It's so memorable and so easy to sing along with that you just want to sing along with it. You know, it sticks in your head. It's those brain worms that you think about. I'm sure you can think of lots of songs that are brain worms that you can't get out of your head. That's a hook. You know, I'm not going to lie, it can be really hard to write a hook, but that's something you want to strive for in your chorus. And with choruses, you want to think bigger than the verses. Your verses should be, you know, establishing the story and kind of bringing the listener in, whereas the chorus should be, you know, more instrumentation, thicker arrangements. Usually the vocal melody will go up. It'll take you somewhere new. So if you make your verses a lot less dense, there's a lot more contrast when that big chorus hits. What I see a lot of time with more amateur songwriters, or what makes a song sound more amateur, is that they just kind of make one part of the song, or maybe it's one chord progression, they just repeat that endlessly. You know, I don't really want to hear, even if it's a really great idea and it has a really great hook, do we really want to hear that for 3 or 5 minutes straight? We don't. So you need that contrast, that tension and release, that push and pull that comes from having different parts and sections of the song. You know, it makes the song way more interesting and makes people want to listen to it. So if you have this really cool verse that you're kind of stuck on and you just want to keep repeating it and repeating it, well, it's kind of like too much of a good thing. You know, if you have your, you know, buy a big giant bag of candy bars and just sit and eat them all the time, you're going to get sick. So no matter how good your verse is, you want to have something that comes along and contrasts it. You know, and your chorus is something that you want to really stick with people. So while your verses can be a really cool idea, you want the chorus to come in and give them something new and exciting, and something that's going to stick with them and make them remember the song. So it's not that your verses need to be boring either. They just need to be different. So you want to have at least 2 good ideas in every song, basically. A really good verse and a really good chorus. If you have that, you're off to a great start. Another thing to really look at with choruses and with verses is your melody contour. Now that's something that, you know, does it stay the same all the time? Does it go up and down? Are you leaping up and down in the notes? A lot of times choruses will be higher in pitch. Sometimes they'll have giant leaps, you know, octave leaps or fifth leaps. Just something to really set them apart and make them singable and just big and just basically hitting you over the head. Even if it's a slow song, or a very, you know, ballady or very somber, very sad song, you know, you might be singing something really devastating in the verses, and when you get to the chorus, it might just be kind of more of a somber sorrow, you know, slower type of thing. So even though it's different from the verse, it's bigger, but in a different way. So maybe the verse might have more, you know, more lines in it, whereas the chorus is just a few simple words like "come back to me" or something like that, you know. It's still different and it's still bigger in concept than what the verse is. Kaiser Wilhelm II, Emperor of Prussia, asks, how do I avoid writer's block? I seem to be stuck in this never-ending war in the trenches. So one of the best things you can do if you're stuck and you have writer's block is to listen to genres and songs that are way outside of your wheelhouse. So like, let's say you're a country singer You're writing these country songs, and you've got your whiskey, you've got your pickup truck, the girl left you. Where do you go from there? Well, how about listening to, a jazz song from the 30s? Listen to those lyrics in that song. You may not associate that with country music, but some of them are very sad, very, relevant to what we feel today. So it might give you a totally different idea, and maybe you can get away from the whiskey in the pickup truck for once. Or let's say you're writing like a pop song, like a Dua Lipa type song, right? But you're finding your melodies are really stagnant and they're not super interesting. How about listening to some classical music, especially things like Mozart or Vivaldi's Four Seasons, for example? They are so rich with distinct melodies, and you can pull from that and get new ideas so that you're not just copying what you hear from other artists. You're actually getting your own ideas and you're blending things together in a new way. And that can make for a lot more exciting, lyrics, a lot more exciting melodies. Like, what if you found a chord progression from an old American songbook era song, like something by Frank Sinatra or earlier even, and you put that into the context of a modern pop song, play it on a synth with a modern beat. You might have something that sounds totally unique. I mean, if you listen to things like, right now we have Chappell Roan and Sabrina Carpenter, and they're kind of bringing back some of the old 80s type sounds. And that's giving a kind of a new, fresh infusion into what has been kind of stagnant in the pop genre for a few years. And again, just think about, what emotions have you been feeling recently? If you're having writer's block, maybe you're really stressed out. It might be a good time to do some free association writing, just write down random words. This is how I feel right now. I feel terrible. I feel stressed. I can't write. I hate it. Well, maybe that sparks a new idea for a song. There's really no reason you should ever have writer's block because there's so much in the world to inspire you. Go for a walk. Go to an art museum. Go, sit down at a cafe you've never been to before. Go do things that are outside of your comfort zone, and I can almost guarantee you that your writer's block will go away. Boudica, Queen of the Celtic Britons, asks, how do I create a strong melody? One strong enough to defeat the Roman Empire, for example. So with melodies, it's all about the contour. And when I say contour, what I see a lot of beginner songwriters doing is kind of a little bit of this. Like the range is maybe like 5 notes. And it's just kind of, they'll play the chords and they'll just kind of play the chord or sing the chord tones along with it. And it sounds really boring when you do that. So you want to think about, hey, what is my, if you were to write out the melody line, does it look like a straight line? Does it look like a roller coaster? Or does it look like, a frog jumping up and down? Because what you want to do is have a combination of all those things. So you might have an ascending line here, then it goes straight for a minute, then it descends, or it jumps during this part and it's more ascending during this part. That kind of gives you a lot of interest instead of just hearing the same thing all through the whole song. A really good way to listen for melodies is to listen to older songs like, the American Songbook era, songs from the 50s, for example, old doo-wop songs. They have very simple melodies, but they're doing a lot with that melody usually in just like a couple of minutes. Like a 2-minute song might have some of the most memorable melodies you've ever heard because they're simple. However, they're really doing something with that. Because back then they didn't have a lot of arrangement. They didn't have a lot of, backing tracks. It was usually something pretty simple and the vocal melody was everything. You could take away the backing music and that melody would stick with you. So think about your melodies in that way instead of them being so tied to what you're saying in the lyrics or so tied to the chord changes. You want to have a lot of movement in there and a lot of memorable stuff. Like you should be able to hear the melody without any words and without any instruments playing with it and know exactly what song it is. If you've done that, you've written a good melody. Another good, just simple thing to do is think about the first half of phrases and the second half of phrases. What I see a lot of people doing is kind of repeating the same thing. So if you're, for example, a common lyric might have 4 lines. So what you might want to do is, have line 1, and then line 2 changes, line 3 repeats the same as line 1, and then line 4 might go in a little bit different direction than line 2. So even though line 2 and line 4 might rhyme with each other, vary up the melody a little bit. There's lots of examples. If you listen to really popular songs or songs that you love, you'll notice them doing that. And it's a good way to give it some variety and not make the what you're singing sound so stagnant. Hemiunu, architect of the Great Pyramid of Giza, asks, what are the key elements of song structure? I feel like only aliens could have built a song this good. So on this topic, I'm going to do a little bit deeper dive in another video. But really the most common pop, rock, country song structure is what we call the verse chorus. And this can be with or without a bridge. And sometimes we add other pieces to this. If you're thinking in terms of writing a song, a good place to start is to come up with a really good verse and a really good chorus. And then if you want the song to take a little break, you can add a bridge in there. And then the extended complete version of the verse chorus song structure might look something like this. We might start with an intro and then go to a first verse and then a second verse and then maybe even a pre-chorus and then the chorus. Then we might even have an after chorus and then go back to a third verse and then go back to the pre-chorus. So a second pre-chorus, then into a chorus. And then we might go straight into a bridge or an instrumental solo, like a guitar solo. And then we come right back to the chorus, or we might even have a fourth verse in there if you're really going nuts. And then a lot of times we'll repeat the chorus a bunch as the outro. And then sometimes we'll have even a little instrumental outro at the very end. So this is kind of the super complete version, and you can add or subtract these little building blocks as you go. There's a bunch of other kinds of song structures too, which I won't get into now, but I will get into more examples of those in a future video. Salvador Dali, artist from Spain, asks, how do I write songs that sound original? My work doesn't seem very original. So first of all, the old adage, just be yourself, really applies here. And don't just try to copy, directly what you hear from another song that you like. And this may seem counterintuitive, but the reality is there really isn't anything that's truly original. A lot of times when you hear a new artist or something that you like, it's really just a combination and a mix of different things together. So instead of thinking, how do I come up with something that's totally new, totally original that nobody's ever heard before? What you can kind of do as an exercise is think, what if I mix 2 things that I really love together? Like, for example, let's say you really love The Cure, but you also really love Justin Timberlake. Well, what would it sound like if you combined The Cure with Justin Timberlake? Would it be The Cure's instrumentation with Justin Timberlake's voice and lyrics? Or would it be, a Justin Timberlake sounding song with Robert Smith of The Cure singing over it? The combinations are endless. Or maybe you can mix 3 or 4 different things together, right? I mean, for example, when the Beatles came out, they were really just kind of a combination of the Everly Brothers and Chuck Berry, with maybe a few other things mixed in there. That new combination gave them a launching point, which then evolved very quickly from there. So if you're just kind of figuring things out, or say you maybe want to go in a new direction, try taking 2 totally different things that you love and put them in a blender and mix them together and see what happens. That can be a really good way to come up with something truly original. Niccolo Machiavelli of Florence asks, how do I know if my song is any good? So this can be a really hard one. First of all, there are different forums and other places on the internet where you can get feedback on your songs before you release them to the public. Obviously, you can let your friends and family listen to it, but A lot of times, unless they're really like a professional artist or a professional musician, they're going to be kind of yes men, and they're going to just kind of tell you whatever you want to hear. They're going to love it no matter what, even if it isn't actually good. So if you can find any objective people in your life or on the internet to, listen to your song and give you actual constructive criticism, and also don't be afraid to receive that criticism. Sometimes, hearing something really harsh can really suck at first, because this is your precious song. This is your crown jewel that you just feel like is perfect, and you're in love with it. Sometimes you got to be willing to kind of destroy what you've built in order to rebuild it into something that actually is good, that is objectively good, that everybody will like. So you don't want to be treating every song that you write or every riff or every lyric that you write that it's so precious that nothing can touch it and nothing can change about it because it's perfect as is. You need to get over that really quickly. That's something that everybody tends to feel in the beginning. You need to get over it. You want to write as many songs as possible, and they're not all going to be great. They're not all a precious baby that needs pampering. Just do the best you can. If people seem to like it and it sounds good enough to release, then do it. Just release it and move on. Maybe it'll take on a life of its own after, and it'll do unexpected things. Or maybe if you play it live later on, it'll evolve into something better. But don't get so bogged down and so into the song being precious that you don't learn from it. The only way you're going to learn is by writing more, not by just perfecting one song and treating one song like it's so perfect and just, perfecting it till it's dead and sounding just lifeless. So for our final question, Miyamoto Musashi of Edo period Japan asks in the Book of Five Rings, how do I collaborate with other songwriters? I don't want to fight with anyone. Well, really, the most simple thing you can do is just ask. If there's somebody that you'd really like to collaborate with, just ask them if you have a way to reach them. It can be a really good idea to find, if there's local people, like if you're in any kind of scene locally, a lot of times the local people really like to get together and collaborate. Some are not super open to it. Some are better with collaborations and some are better alone. I'm one of those people that it's always worked alone. And in recent years, I've started to reach out and collaborate with people more, even if it's just lyrics. I write the music, they write the lyrics. That can be an easy way to get started so that there's no, conflict. But really what you want to do, if you're going to collaborate with anyone, is put your ego aside and be very open to suggestions. Don't shoot down ideas because you're super invested in this idea that you have, because what you hear might be better. Or maybe when it's heard aloud, they'll realize, oh no, this isn't very good. But you want to just kind of be open to exploring. That's what collaboration is about, is exploration. Being open to new ideas, because the only real point to collaborating is to see what new things come of it. Not because, hey, I want to make this song that I've already wrote and already think is perfect, I want it to be better. That's not going to happen. You want it to be something new. So a lot of times the best way to think of a collaboration is, this isn't going to be my song. This is going to be our song. Because if you go thinking this is my song and they're just going to help with it, you're doomed to fail from the start. But there's really no wrong way to do a collaboration. Just be nice to the other person and be open to all ideas. And maybe they'll give you, too much negative energy. And if that's the case, just break it off and, go with whatever they're suggesting and just kind of leave it at that, and maybe don't work with them in the future. But if you're open-minded and they're open-minded, some really good magical things can happen. Thanks for watching this video all the way to the end. If you found anything in this video helpful, please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. It would really help me a lot. And if you have any suggestions for anything you want to see me talk about, leave those in the comments below. If you want to hear any of the songs that I've written, I'll leave links to those in the description below. And other than that, I hope you have a good day, and I hope you write some great songs. I'd love to hear them.